Hi, and welcome to GPS. My name is Aditya, and I'm joined along with Saidat. So let's just get right into it. So, after a pair of tire blowouts for Lance Stroll and the race leader Max Verstappen turned the race on its head and led to a two-lap sprint at the finish following a red flag, further drama followed. Neither of the top two drivers in the championship scored, as Sergio Perez notched up his maiden victory for Red Bull. So, what do you think about this race, Saidat?
Okay, straight to the question. Phenomenal, quite unfortunate for many drivers, but at the end of the day, that was probably the happiest podium combination you could find on the grid. So I'll take that. I mean, you know me, I keep saying that street circuits are not really that great for defining the performance of these cars. Monaco was brilliant. So I don't know, maybe I counter jinxed the whole season. So yeah, Baku was good, man. Baku was a lot more fun than I'd expected it to be. Um, at least luckily, nobody got hurt. Remember, we told about how
Yeah,
dangerous motorsport can be, and it was a good thing nobody got hurt here because the tire blowouts were not puzzling really, but they were still pretty dangerous. Um, yeah. My thoughts were I'm just happy to see Vettel back on the podium. Gasly really fought for his third place as well, and Perez finally got a win, finally got a
yeah,
W in his first ever season with Red Bull. So let's hope
that's
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 one of many
brilliant.
more.
Agreed. I think we were just talking about this a few races ago. Like, if Red Bull really want to keep increasing the championship lead, they need to make sure that both the drivers are very close to each other. Because this isn't going to happen when you have one driver finishing in the bottom half and the other one is winning races. But mate, I mean, Baku always brings us a stunner. And after that snooze fest in Monaco, I think the whole F1 community deserved this. Rather unfortunate for Verstappen and Hamilton fans, but I think, but I don't. I look at this as something where it stays at status quo. Hamilton, if he would have finished the race, would have done some solid damage limitation, but right now it just stays the same. So even with let's say Perez finishing the race at first. I don't think he got the fastest lap point, but even with his closest competitors not finishing the race, he's still 36 points behind Verstappen. So you can see how far the pendulum swings in the championship. Coming to another protagonist in the championship, Valtteri Bottas. I mean, abysmal performance. Not to say that this wasn't going to happen. I think when Toto Wolff comes out of an interview saying that he took a bullet for us because he ensured that Hamilton got the toe to reach P2. You get what you pay for it at the end of the day. And I think another point which I noticed that was Hamilton and Bottas were running two different rear wing setups. So one allowed better handling on the tires and better preservation of the tires. One wasn't. Uh, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt to think who that was, but it's not
Yeah,
going very well for
any prizes
Mercedes with
for
that performance.
any prizes for the right guess, or I don't know. But I mean, see, you're right. See, it was obviously they were talking about how Hamilton got the upgrade, but that I don't think that really helped Mercedes in their case and actually fighting Red Bull in the street circuit because Hamilton came on
Yeah.
the radio. I think in the first stint, if not the first, I'm pretty sure it would have been the second, because he came on the radio saying that Red Bull just has solid grip out of exits, and we saw that Sergio Perez is actually pulling away from Hamilton mid-race in all of those exits. Obviously, after a point, it kind of stagnated and Hamilton started coming back. But I think after the pit stop, Perez really started pushing to kind of keep the gap between him and Verstappen to a minimal.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
yeah, and like you said, this is the first time Red Bull has actually properly had one of their drivers defending their lead driver for the race from the Mercedes Wolf pack. In this case, only Hamilton was there, of course, but it's kind of like the flip scenario where you usually have two Mercedes up in front and then you've got a Red Bull chasing them down. So yeah, definitely the rear wing solution did not work for Mercedes, but something tells me they were not really aiming for a benefit at Baku. It's probably something that's definitely going to show up as a benefit in a circuit like Paul Ricard with a lot more downforce.
Yeah,
Here, it's more of a mechanical balance issue.
yeah. The most important point is we are heading into the most important part of the season. This is only just like this is just warm water. the real deal is coming in Europe, and that's where teams know they can utilize the best. Performance built circuits are the places where Lewis Hamilton is known to be exceptional, and Mercedes are basically out of touch. Yeah, but I think Red Bull have come with a good intention. They have two drivers who are very close to each other, who are actually trying to bring the fight to Mercedes, which is good to see in the F1 community, because we haven't seen this in a very long time. And contrary to what we've been seeing in the past few years, was that we would see Ferrari doing so well in the first half of the season, and then suddenly they would just tank. But I hope this is not the case with Red Bull. They seem to have a lot of they seem to have a lot of favors on their side, except for, let's say, Pirelli, the unfortunate Pirelli incident. But they are looking forward to go in a good direction. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Pirelli.
Yeah, so they went with the softest combination possible, right? Which is the C3 to C5, or was
Yeah,
it?
that's
Yep.
one. That's the one.
So see, this is a classic example of what happens when your tire overheats, right? Now, generally, why do you go for softer tires in certain street circuits? For example, Monaco, you go for softer tires because there aren't actually many high energy corners. Yes, you have high downforce because you want to keep the yaw changes, and the runoff area doesn't exist, so you want to keep high downforce just to kind of maximize your grip through, especially the casino section. But all in all, there's not much of high energy input going on in Baku, going on in Monaco, and that's why you go for a softer compound set. But in Baku, I don't know, it's just a little surprising because you wouldn't really expect that to happen. Like I said, it wasn't puzzling that it did happen, but you wouldn't specifically expect it to happen right there, because you have a high energy sector just before that straight, but it's not quite as high as what you'd expect for a tire blowout to happen correctly at that point in the circuit. Because before entering that high speed sector, which I'll refer to corner numbers so it's not as confusing. So before getting into the high speed 18 and 19 portions of the track, you've got quite a slow section. 13 till 15 is actually quite slow speed. Then you've got a little bit of a straight up till 16, again a 90-degree corner. So it's not something like in like the Indy 500 where you take the odd number turns, and then the even number turns you have a risk of blowing your tire because the short chute is just not long enough to cool down the tires. Here it's probably got just something to do with the hysteresis, the fact that the tires just got battered over their stint. Because if it were a problem with just rapid temperature increase, that would have happened anytime in the stint. Why is it that both these incidents were isolated to the end of the stint? So it's perhaps just it's actually really confusing. Honestly, there are just too many variables to consider here. But all in all, yeah, perhaps a harder compound set might have limited the damage, but this could potentially fundamentally be an issue with the tire compound, the tire formula itself. So maybe remember we are going with slightly newer formula in Pirelli compounds for this year. It's not the same rubber used last year. There's a small change. So maybe they didn't consider that with the lack of a little bit of downforce in the rear. Who knows? There could have been some extra scrub in the rear tires. Really, at this point, it's speculative. I don't think it's a good idea to get into technicalities because
there's no point talking about technicalities because there's no point talking about technicalities. I think I have 2 points about this. Pirelli came in with one step softer tires than what they did in 2019. I don't know why they made that decision. Plus, they increased the rear pressure from 19 psi to 20 psi during the race weekend. I don't know why you would make that decision, because here when you increase it basically just increases the pressure. You tend to have lesser grip, so you have more heating on the tires. The reason why I think they didn't want to go with the harder set of tires was pretty much because the track isn't that impressive. I think heating up the tires would have been a lot more. Heating up the tires is going to be a lot more work.
In essence, it makes sense that they might have gone for a softer set. But then after going for a softer set in order to increase the pressure, does that really make sense? Because a softer compound is always going to heat up quicker. So your pressure is going to build up higher anyways, like much quicker. Why start off with a much higher cold pressure for that much higher cold pressure for the tire? I don't really see the logic. Might as well just go for a harder compound.
Yeah, see, it's a very good point when you're looking at it from retrospect. But when you look at it a lot more closely, Lance Stroll was on the prime. Max Verstappen was on the options. There were two different tire sets. They were the same rear left tire, which had the problem, which makes it to say that there might have been a little more technicality, which tends to come to that solution. the end product of whatever happened to both of them. But I think one part which we didn't really mention was that the people who actually regulate the tire compounds coming into F1 are not Pirelli. The original formulae are basically compounded everything together by the FOM, by the Formula One management. So when Jonathan Wheatley came onto the FIA radio saying that we had absolutely no clue that there was something happening on our tire, it shows to indicate that there was something really wrong. And I think, yeah, Pirelli says that it's debris, but I'm sure that it's a lot more complex than that. So we'll just have to wait and see what teams have to say coming into
too many
the next few
variables.
races.
I mean, when is the last time
agreed.
when is the last time we even saw a tire blowout that almost changed the race? It was back in Silverstone.
2019.
Right?
2019 Silverstone.
Not only
Yeah.
Silverstone.
So 2020
no, that was
Silverstone.
last year. Where, I mean, again, it was just a case of having. See, that's a different case though, because those are high energy sectors. Like Maggots and Beckett's are one of the most high energy sectors in perhaps the entire calendar, along with perhaps the likes of Suzuka. You have the 130R. There are a lot of high speed sectors, but Silverstone particularly is very punishing on the tires, sector number 2. So it's a little different from that. And again, that's why I feel there's just too many variables. And I think mentioning anything specifically about the tires and why it happened would just be ignorant of us in hindsight. I don't know. I wouldn't rule out debris as a factor.
Agreed.
I don't see any reason for Pirelli to just cook something up like that, because this is something that's definitely going to be looked into anyways. So
there were a lot of crashes in Formula 2 as well. So maybe there would have been a lot of debris on the track, but
could be anything.
Anyway,
and like you said, it's a street circuit. It's not tarmac. So who knows? Streets also like change over time because they're continuously being used. It's not like a circuit that's being used once a month across the year for different series. So there could be so many parameters, so many factors. Who knows? It could even have been something like a water, one of those water grills. We saw that happen in a few races in the past. Haas, I think, hitting one of those drain grills in Malaysia, I believe, a few years back. So so many things are possible. But yeah, I think personally, I wouldn't like to comment any more on the tire situation because
fair enough.
Yeah, it's a bit too early to understand that. Yep.
Aston Martin, Sebastian Vettel. Solid strategy. I don't think there is much to add. I think Sebastian Vettel, this is the form I think people have been craving to see from a 4-time world champion after having what was an abysmal season back in 2020. I think he feels like this change has done him good, but because we've seen from the start of the season that he's been evolving, and so has the team. Apart from the fact that Lance Stroll had crashed, both the cars were running very well, and it kind of you would want to say that the Aston Martin does very well with the tires, but I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt because Sebastian Vettel was running that car. But started 11th, gained a few positions, pitch perfect race, banked in on the strategies, used the cautions whenever he wanted well, popping at the right place at the right time. This is a champion's drive. I don't think there is much to add because it was a clinical race till the end. He did have luck on his side, but I don't think there is much to add with this.
Perhaps in the case of him getting onto the podium, yes, there was a bit of luck on his side because two people who were almost certainly going to be on the podium just found themselves at the tail end of the grid at the end of the race. Like not completely out of the points. But even so, even if you include the fact that Hamilton and Verstappen, if they had finished the race, if you take that scenario, Vettel would have still finished 4th. And it's not because he got into a position in a track where overtaking is not possible. It's not like in a situation like Monaco where, okay, he still fought for that position, overtaking Gasly and then held on to it. This is a circuit where he still can overtake. So there's no one can, say that Vettel only got this position because he was able to just get his strategy right. Like you said, it's a solid champion's drive. He really felt comfortable in the car. And I feel like this is the Vettel which we used to see back in his early days with Ferrari as well, when he was really fighting for wins. This is that old Vettel that we're seeing again. Remember when he shifted from Red Bull to Ferrari? He again had this spark. He finally got to step into the shoes of his idol, Michael Schumacher, to finally drive for Ferrari. Right. And you saw the energy Vettel brought with him through 2015 till about 16, 17, 2015 to 17. So I think we're starting to see that Vettel back. And I don't know, a lot of people have told this as well, but it was so refreshing to hear him laugh on the radio. We've never seen him that. We've never heard him that happy in more than a year. And not only Vettel, you also have to remember that third place man Gasly also really fought for his position. And to see the sheer joy of all the pit crew members' face from across those three teams, that I'm pretty sure everybody was happy with that result. Even Toto Wolff was happy to an extent. It was a bittersweet. It was sad for his team, but he was still really happy for the podium, the combination.
Of course,
just shows the whole F1 fraternity was happy with the whole situation. So yeah, whole F1.
I don't think the entire. I don't think the entire paddock was happy with the situation. I think a lot of. I think Red Bull and Otmar would be looking at it a lot more differently. I don't think Mercedes also are looking very happy at the situation, because they don't want to be in this place. They don't want to be second in the constructors or second in the drivers' championship. That's not what they're here for.
No, of course not.
But nevertheless, it's a win for the Formula One community on a larger aspect when you think about it. But yeah, it's something what I really want to talk about. AlphaTauri, who clearly came in as a very strong package along with Aston Martin. I don't know, something about Aston Martin just clicked, man. They were doing very well. They had very good race pace, something that was unmatchable by the Alphas or Ferrari. The only reason why I think Charles Leclerc got the pole, because he got that massive hunk of a toe from Lewis Hamilton. Because I was watching the lap chart where Leclerc joined the track, and he was right behind Bottas and Hamilton. And I think that was the best place for him to be, and to get pole was exceptional. I think it was very fortunate. It was the right place at the right time, as we keep talking. But that gave him a solid 0.6 of a toe, and we clearly saw that if that put him down, if he didn't have the toe, he would have been behind Gasly either way. So to see that Alpha was ahead clearly shows you that Alpha really had the stronger car. Also good to see that Yuki Tsunoda started and finished in 7th place. A little bit here and there, his race performance, but I think his first points, his best finish, really put in a good morale for AlphaTauri, because the only way they can stay there in the championship is to make sure that they get both the drivers who are getting maximum points. Yeah, Alpine did not have a good race, but what they can consistently do is get points, with Ocon doing so well this year as well. But with more performance like this from Yuki Tsunoda, I think it's going to go really well.
Coming to just saying about Alpine, there wasn't a lot of TV coverage of what exactly they were doing in the race, but they seem to still have a solid position in mid-pack. Unfortunate that Ocon had that engine failure, but at least Alonso found himself in 6th place, which was also a really positive step forward for Alpine. We've seen them slowly improving as well. I think they're one of the quieter teams to be improving, with not much talk about them in the paddock. Everyone seems to be focusing on the Astons. Everyone seems to be talking about McLaren having super races and then really bad races. They're like all over the place. People are talking about AlphaTauri. But there are two teams people are discounting. Alpine seems to be creeping in there, and Alfa Romeo seem to always be picking up the final pieces. So they're always there trying to clutch for those final points. So there are a lot of teams that are in contention for mid-pack.
But I clearly feel that Alpine was nowhere this race. They were outclassed. The only reason they came in was because of Fernando Alonso. And that's only because of experience.
Well, I don't think it was... Ocon didn't have a chance. Like, he retired in the beginning, like first few laps. So yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, we had Stroll who had a blowout of a tire. He didn't finish the race, yet you saw an Aston Martin on the podium. You have to take your chances, and I think this is where it comes to eventually.
Of course, Alpine is clearly a mid-pack team right now. I'm not saying that they're top contenders.
But I'm
they're
saying
not the best
is that
of the rest, but yeah.
But they have been outclassed in the past 2 races, and that's why situations. Yeah. And this momentum does carry on. And I think if that changes when we go to Europe, we can have a different situation. I think the only time we can have a solid opinion on where things are is before the mid-season break, because that's when you've done half of Europe, and then you actually know exactly what's going to happen with the rest of the year. But
I think the track where it's going to be right on the dot for performance is going to be Hungary. That's a track that has a bit of everything. So and that's the final race before mid-season. And we're back in Hungary after a couple of years. So this is a really good benchmark. And before that, also you have Silverstone, which despite being quite a flat track overall in its high-speed sections, is still also a really good benchmark for what these teams can do. Silverstone and Hungary perfectly placed right there at the middle of the season. Great benchmarks for this. But speaking of a good circuit that's a benchmark, not everyone's favorite track for sure. It's gotten a lot of flack over the past few years. The Paul Ricard circuit, the French GP, but it is still a good circuit. It's a good circuit for test. Exactly, it's a good circuit for testing the car's capabilities. Why is it so boring? So let's kind of steer into France, like steer into the French GP. Why is it that Formula One fails to deliver very exciting races here when you have such exceptional races in the likes of cars like GT, GTE, and GT3 cars that seem to be doing really well over here?
Very simple. Followability. That's pretty much the only reason why they have a problem.
It's such a tight racetrack. The high-speed sectors are so narrow. So that's exactly that's perfectly perfectly said. As you said, it's because of the followability. So what does this tell us? It is a good aero track. You have long straights as well. So this will tell us whether Aston Martin really is picking up the pace in straight line speed. You have a lot of high speed corners. This will tell us whether Mercedes is really able to catch up with Red Bull in aero development. You have chicanes. So we'll see whether Red Bull has the advantage if they've started picking up their pace. It's such a well-rounded track for checking pace, provided there's no dirty air that's influencing the way the cars are running. So it's only going to be quali pace that will tell us about.
Hear me out. I have a question for you. Let's say you check out the chicane on the Mistral straight. What do you think that's going to do? I want to see it only because I like the way the whole track is set up for GT races. Personal fan, I love the track, but just take the chicane out. What do you think that's going to happen?
That's in Sector 2, right?
Yeah.
If you remove that chicane, of course, your DRS straight is going to go longer. It's going to.
Of course, it's just an OP.
Double. So let's also hypothetically ignore that DRS. Let's assume DRS for some reason is magically cut off halfway through that straight.
No, let's assume that we put DRS a lot more further than what you usually do.
Okay, so let's start DRS a little later, right? Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. 500 to 600 meters later.
Kind of like Spain, let's say, Spain or Bahrain, where the DRS zone starts a little after the straight starts.
Correct.
Okay, what does it do? Nothing much. It does a slipstream. It's a slipstreaming game then, and section turns number 4, 5, 6, 7. It's a very slow section, anyways. So people are not really going to be pulling away massively through there. So what is it going to do? It's going to add a few more overtakes to the race, and then what? I mean, it's just a slipstream.
Does that make you happy?
I don't know. See, I want racing. I want action. I want overtakes to happen around corners, into braking zones, around corners, not only in straights. DRS has played a significant role in increasing the number of overtakes over the past 10 years. But what I really want to see is overtakes in other zones, which is still possible.
I think we watch a lot of GT races.
I think that's also the thing. We watch a lot of GT. We do a lot of stuff related to GT races. That's probably one reason why we're kind of finding our way, steering our way towards that, steering our opinions that direction. But
fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, see, again, when you're looking at F1, when you have cars that are this powerful, that reach terminal velocity so quickly, it's always going to be a slipstreaming game. So to answer your question, removing that chicane is going to increase overtakes in the race, but is it going to increase the excitement? Personally, for me, no, it's not.
I have another thing to add as well. Problem is, I think if you take away the straight, you can clearly see who the winners are on top speed. So you can see some teams really pull away on the straight and then create a gap in which the people behind just won't have a DRS. So then you just create a train with like the top two cars. Then third and fourth will be like 30 seconds back. Then you have like a mid pack who will be fighting for 30 odd laps or so, and then you have the rest of the Formula One pack. So yeah, I guess that was a very stupid question.
If I want to see it's not a dumb question. It's actually a good point, because this brings up the fact that there's a reason again why F1 is not really that exciting in the French GP, at least with the Circuit Paul Ricard. I think Magny Cours was quite interesting track that has a lot more
Yeah,
variation and stuff. This is slightly, I mean,
yeah.
this is not a new track. Paul Ricard is not a new
It's
track,
got a.
but they were completely
It's a more
resurfaced it
character.
when they started using Paul Ricard once
Correct.
again. And they do have another
Yeah.
another older section as well, which is also cool. You know, when the track was in its early roots in the earlier times, without all those weird, I don't know, those tire shredding runoff areas.
Right.
You know, before
Right.
that, it actually felt like a classic track, right, with all the gravel and everything, the runoff areas. Now it feels so artificial, so that again kind of takes away from the essence of a classic F1 race, at least for me. And again, if I want to see top speed performance, I'll watch Monza, I'll watch Austria. I wouldn't want to see that in every other track as well. I would watch Abu Dhabi for top speed. Mexico's there for top speed. You have so many other tracks, why
Yeah.
bring more, you know?
I mean, not arguing with you. I like to see new countries into the sport as well. But maybe if we have one proper race, we can possibly have a different opinion. Or maybe once the whole formula changes next year, we'll probably start liking these tracks a lot more better. Anyway, before we just jump into Le Castle, I just want to talk about two more things. Sergio Perez, man, I don't think he put a foot wrong during the entire race. He did have a problem, and I think the only problem was at the pit stop. Well, when Max Verstappen had a 1.9 second pit stop, Perez had a 4.2 second pit stop. Still, he managed to come ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and that clearly showed you that Red Bull came in on the front foot here, and they wanted to make sure that they stay there.
It's not only the fact that Red Bull came on the front foot. Mercedes were clearly struggling. You saw it with Bottas.
Yeah, they were.
Somewhere lesser. It was in the second half of the grid. Even Hamilton was struggling. Okay, it's not the standard Hamilton drive we see where he was able to really pick up the pace and chase down the car ahead. He was really struggling in the dirty air, the turbulent air coming off of Perez's complex, perhaps most complex aero-designed car on the grid. So, yes, it's a clear problem with the balance of the Mercedes car right now. But, you know, they've had two really bad races. This is like we say, we always see this with Mercedes. They just bounce back, and if they get a good run, if they get a good quali run in France, they're going to run away with that race. Hopefully, Bottas and Hamilton are both at the front, because that'll chase down Red Bull and the constructors, and we'll again have a fight on our hands. Now, we've got two really good Red Bull races that have just happened. Now I want Mercedes to kind of bounce back a little bit too, just to keep the title fight. Now, if you see Red Bull run away with the races, it's again it'll be refreshing, of course, but it's again going to get boring towards the end. So none of us really want that. I think the next three races are going to be dominated by Mercedes, simply because of the natures of the tracks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they weren't really having a very good race. I mean, Lewis Hamilton's golden words, he has so much rear end. We could legitimately see that car was gaining so much more time in sector 2 and sector 3, coming on turn number 15 to just get that little bit of a lead, so he just stays away from the DRS. And Hamilton, I think he did a fairly decent race until the point where he just went straight off into turn number 1. But he was always there. I think any other driver would have.
He would have won the race. He would have went back. If he didn't have brake magic on, he would have taken the lead and won.
Agreed. That's what I want to talk about. But before we just get into Hamilton, Sergio Perez almost lost the race because he had a problem coming on the last lap, and possibly if it was one more hydraulic failure, one more lap, and we would see an Aston Martin win a race, which should have been absolutely whack. But
actually, this is if you hear the interviews that Seb gave. I think if you read the article, the write-ups about the interview, he was talking about how he actually considered chasing down Perez. He tried his luck he tried an overtake attempt for the next couple of corners. But after, I think, a few corners into Baku, he realized, okay, he has to play a little bit safe, because the next second sector of Baku is obviously really tight. And then Red Bull was clearly faster, but Vettel was still fighting for the win for a bit of for a while after the restart. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, if the race were one lap longer, we would have had Aston Martin, an Alpha Tauri, and then who was fourth?
Ferrari.
Ferrari. Yeah, Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc.
That would have been a crazy podium as well. So, either way. But I'm really happy
but I
for
like this
Checo,
podium
man.
as well.
I like this podium.
I'm happy for Checo.
The previous race was a happy podium. This was a happy podium. We've had 8 different podium sitters in the past 3 races. So if that's not enough excitement for this era, I don't know what else can spice it up.
Oh no, man, it can get better. You have just very low expectations.
I hope it gets better.
But either way, I think when we look at it in retrospect now, Checo can go back home and have this huge checkbox ticked. I think the most important point was that he needs to make sure that he wins a race and makes a mark. I know he's experienced. He's had years of time with tires and cars and different manufacturers and stuff like that. But Helmut Marko wants a win, he gets a win. That's it. Nothing else. Close the book, go to sleep, come back to the next race. You don't have to worry about contracts or anything like that. Plus, Sergio can literally do whatever the hell he wants in life. But he's done this, and that's a good mark. He basically gave the team 25 points, even with Verstappen crashing out. Anyway,
interesting you talked about experience, because Sergio's first season was in 2011, the year that the entire F1 community switched to Pirelli. So he's one of the people who's had no experience with Bridgestone in F1. He started his career with Pirelli, and he's seen it from the beginning. So he's a guy who's had a lot of very neutral experience with Pirelli from the get-go. So that's probably one reason. I don't know, it's probably a potential reason why he's so consistent. He understands the car from their fundamental beginning, from the 2011 era onwards. So I think he's the only driver on the grid who joined in 2011 who's currently there right now, like as a rookie from 2011. So yeah, he has a lot of solid onboard experience, and he's a good driver.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely have nothing to disagree with that point of view. Coming on to Hamilton, who was another loser from the race. Words that preceded unfortunate events. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. What happened, bro?
I don't know. Everyone's talking about it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But okay, I
agree.
The context makes sense during that red flag period, but whatever. It doesn't really make much of a difference to me. There is radio comments and all. That's standard.
No, right? But this is something that I haven't heard from a radio conversation in here. I don't know. I don't have F1 TV. I don't hear every single conversation they have. But for this to come on, like say Sky Sports World broadcast, Hamilton in the pit lane was basically saying that, dude, I just want to go get some points for the team. This is the most important thing, because he, at the end of the day, knows it's not his World Drivers' Championship that matters to Toto. It's the constructors. And that's the only reason they're there, and that's why they're only backing him with all the power they can get. But very unfortunate, because I think that this would have been another standout Hamilton victory. Brake magic. Brake bias pushed in all the way to the front. Do you have any thoughts about it? I think it was just very unfortunate.
Yeah, maybe to conclude the episode, we'll just talk a little bit about that brake magic problem, because that's what happened at the end of the race. A lot of people. I've seen a lot of fans discussing this on multiple platforms about how the brakes were overheating. There's some misconception that brake magic means it's heating up the front brakes like magically, like with some heat. That's actually not what's happening. For anyone who's wondering exactly what was the issue with Hamilton's brakes, brake magic was a mode basically that changes the brake balance of the car. So that means that more of the pressure of the hydraulic pressure goes to the front set of the front brakes. Right now, why do generally race cars do run a front bias? Because when you brake, a lot of your weight transfers to the front of the car.
Exactly.
Right? It's inertial weight transfer. You have more load on the front, so you can afford to put more pressure. Because if you put more of that brake pressure to the rear, all you're doing is wasting braking potential and potentially locking up the rear. However, there is such a thing as over braking the front, over slowing down the front as well. And as soon as the brake locks on, as soon as kinetic friction comes into play, kinetic friction is always less than static friction, car is just going to keep sliding. This is what happened. Now, why do they have a brake magic mode? Well, when you're at slower speeds, like under a safety car, it's all right to have that, because even if you lock a little bit, it's not too much of a problem. The brake's not going to get clamped down either. So you can do that to build brake temperature, because ultimately you want higher temperatures for the fronts, because those are ones that are going to be doing most of the work during the race. but for some reason it didn't happen. For some reason it didn't revert back to the setting. He accidentally switched it and kept it in the brake magic mode. And now that's not an explanation as to why the brakes were heating up on the grid, right? Because that happened before the restart. I mean, just when he was waiting on the grid,
he was sitting there for like about a minute and a half.
No, it's standard. We always see in restarts like this, Hamilton's brakes are always a lot more smoky. Right? There's always smoke coming out of Hamilton's brakes. Like you see it in every.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot of times.
So when I watched it in the race, when I was watching it also, I was like, yeah, whatever, it's standard. But you see, if he hadn't had brake magic on, he would have made that corner easily. So it's got nothing to do with the brakes smoking at the restart. But this is just an essence of what exactly happened to him. Now, why it was switched on, multiple reasons. I don't know, maybe Hamilton accidentally flicked it. That's what Toto says. That's what Hamilton says.
Possibly.
I mean, they wouldn't purposely keep it on. So obviously there was it was just a slip of the hand or something. But is that something that you really see happening in F1? I don't know. It just shows that everyone is human at the end of the day. So yeah, it's no one's fault. It's just unfortunate it happened. But if anyone's accountable for it, it was perhaps Hamilton who might have flicked it. But we never know.
Yeah. Let's just say this is Hamilton's problem, and I think he's going to come back a lot more stronger.
Yeah, it's not a terminal problem. It's not. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to anyone accidentally flicking a switch. So it's fine.
Yeah, but now it just stays status quo. And Hamilton right now, Hamilton right now is thinking I could have got away with 18 more points or 25 more points than Max Verstappen, and that's bloody crucial when you look at the World Championship standings. But he's definitely going to come back stronger. I think you can write this race off. It really doesn't make a big difference.
Definitely.
But we can start with a new face. But
let's hope Mercedes bounce back. Sorry.
So 6 races down. What do you think? What are your predictions for the championship? 6 or 7 races. How many races have we done with it?
I think we're 6 races in. So
yeah, what do you think about the championship?
What do I think about the championship? Again, I'm not predicting anything. It could go either way. Okay, let me do a quick calculation then. Mercedes will perhaps take Austria, Britain, Hungary might go for Red Bull. Okay. We don't want to calculate right off the bat. Yeah. I would say the constructors will go to Red Bull. WDC will go to Hamilton. That's my prediction.
I have the same opinion. Yeah, I have the same opinion too. So only because of the fact that the past 6 races have been terrible for Valtteri Bottas, and if he doesn't do the next 6 races well, I think it's a runaway championship by Red Bull.
I think George Russell is really eyeing that seat now. It's the fact that Bottas has had a lot of time in the car, and I think George did prove
I agree.
He's in the other race. I mean, he was faster than Bottas in his first race for Mercedes, so that just shows clear pace differences there. Bottas was really good in Williams. I'm not saying he's a bad driver. He was actually really good. Bottas, Massa, that team combo was really, really good in Williams.
They got them a lot of pole. Both
of them got podiums, so that's a positive step.
Front rows, 2014, 2015, very good years. 2016 was a good year for them as well. But I don't think we're looking at it in a way that it's okay to flip drivers every season. Just because Red Bull does it doesn't mean every team's going to do it. I don't think Toto is going to stoop down to that level and say that we're going to just do a little bit of himbo jimbo every season. I don't think he's going to stoop down to that level because I think they have a little more ethical value to their drivers. In some respect, it's not that they have options like Red Bull, so they can flip anybody around. They can literally bring anyone from out of the sport, like how they did with Brendan Hartley. Like the man was doing fine in WEC, winning Le Mans, winning the WEC and all that. But you could have literally picked up anybody else. You could have put Jake Dennis into the seat. You could have literally brought in any of the other drivers. You could have possibly had Pierre Gasly as well. And Pierre Gasly was there that year, wasn't he? Yeah. But I don't get it. But I really don't see them shuffling seats. Maybe for a couple of races, but I think that would just be bad. I really don't want to see it. Like, just give Valtteri his entire season. And
see, my final conclusion to all of this for this episode potentially is that, Bottas has had a good amount of time in the car. They're going into a new era. There's a good potential that both the Mercedes seats will be up for grabs from next year. So anything can happen. On that note, I'd just like to say yeah, let's hope for an exciting season the way we've had it till now. Paul Ricard is definitely going to be interesting. I hope it's going to be an interesting race as well. But in terms of car performance, that's going to be a great benchmark.